Peace, everybody. How y'all doing? This is your brother Kimbe. I'm back again with another installment of our brand new series, Kimbe Reads. Kimbe Reads is to highlight the significance and the importance of authors, playwrights, poets, directors, creators of African descent, black, intelligent people from all over the world, from North America, South America, the Caribbean, the continent of Africa, of course, Asia, wherever you find black writers, wherever you find people doing dope things of African descent, I'm going to try to highlight it, bring light to it because it's deserving of it. This is Kimbe Reads. Our first selection is Assata, an autobiography written by Assata Shakur in her own words, as well as a foreword by the revolutionary Angela Davis and attorney Lennox S. Hines. This is chapter 2. So chapter 2, as I explained before, all of the odd chapters in this book, there's 21 chapters in this book. All of the odd chapters, all of the odd numbered chapters, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, so on and so forth, are dedicated to Assata's experiences in reference to her trial. Things surrounding the trial, her moving from different prisons, her altercations with the troopers, FBI, various law enforcement agencies. That's what the odd numbers are for. The even chapters are dedicated to Assata's upbringing, her foundation, her childhood, all the way through adulthood. Why does she think the way that she thinks? Why does she feel the way that she feels? What led her to a life of activism? Who did you meet? Who was influential and impactful to your life? What university did you attend? Where did you grow up? Where did you live before you got clamped down by the police? What led you to be a Black Panther? Why are they accusing you of being the mother hen of the Black Liberation Army? What is the Black Liberation Army? There's so many questions, and hopefully we can get to some of the answers as we analyze the text. We're on chapter 2. With no further ado, let's get there. Let's get to it. All right, what do we have? Okay, so chapter 2 starts off with essential details about Assata's upbringing. Let's begin. My mother and father were divorced shortly after I was born. I lived with my mother, my aunt, Evelyn Williams, my grandmother, Lulu Hill, and my grandfather, Frank Hill, in a house in the Brickstown section of Jamaica, New York. So this is her foundation, Jamaica, New York. She says, when I was 3 years old, my grandparents sold the house and moved down south. I moved with them. We moved into a big wooden house on 7th Street in Wilmington, North Carolina. So that's a drastic change of scenery. To go from Jamaica, New York to Wilmington, North Carolina, I'm sure there's going to be a bit of culture shock. It was the house my grandfather had grown up in. All right, so we have some history. Sounds like she's getting back to her roots. So here we go. Papa Link had worked as a chauffeur for one of the most prominent white families in Wilmington. And the story goes, he had been a prominent member of the black community. He and my great-grandmother, Mama Jessie, had worked hard all their lives, had raised 11 children in that house, and had died under the impression that the house was theirs. Fine print and white lawyers have a way of robbing black people of what is theirs. My grandparents were forced to buy the house again. Wow, that's unfortunate. Well, in those times, you couldn't trust anything that you signed, That's way back. But let's continue. Right here, we're going to highlight Assata's grandparents and their views on white folks or Caucasian people. All of my family tried to instill in me a sense of personal dignity. But my grandmother and my grandfather were really fanatic about it. Over and over they would tell me, you're as good as anyone else. Don't let anybody tell you that they're better than you. My grandparents strictly forbade me to say yes ma'am and yes sir, or to look down at my shoes, or to make subservient gestures when talking to white people. You look them in the eye when you talk to them, I was told, and speak up like you've got some sense. I was told to speak in a loud, clear voice and to hold my head up high or risk having my grandparents knock it off my shoulders. Wow, so that gives you some insight into her grandparents and how they felt. And I'm sure this has impacted her worldview as she carries on into adulthood. So let's backtrack. This is young Assata, probably between the ages of 7, no older than 9. She's born in Jamaica, New York. She moves at 3 years old to Wilmington, North Carolina, with her grandparents who just had to buy the house that their great-grandparents were under the impression that they already owned. They had to buy it again, right? So she's moving down into history. Some would say getting more in touch or in contact with her roots, which is important. So we're going to move right along, not to hold too long. Assata views on her grandparents. This is how she starts to visualize her grandparents, conceptualize them is probably a better word. The tactics that my grandparents used were crude, and I hated it when they would repeat everything so often. But the lessons that they taught me, more than anything else I learned in life, helped me to deal with things I would face growing up in America. But a lot of times for my grandparents, pride and dignity were hooked up to things like position and money. For them, being just as good as white people meant having what white people had. They would tell me to go to school and study so I could have a nice house and nice clothes and a nice car. White people don't want to see us with nothing, they would tell me. That's why you've got to get your education so that you can be somebody and have something in life. Becoming somebody in life just didn't mean too much to me. I wanted to feel happy, to feel good. So you can see young Assata is having some conflict between the values and the morals of her grandparents and some of the values and morals she's starting to develop independently as an individual. Nonetheless, you can see the impact of her grandmother's words, her grandfather's words. You hold your head up when you talk to white folks. You don't yes sir and yes ma'am. You don't make no subservient gestures. You talk like you have something to say. You speak in a loud, clear, direct voice, and you make your point. You make your presence be known, because nobody's better than you. Not based off of the color of your skin solely, you know. So these things are very influential and impactful to a young Assata. So let's see as she matures. It's interesting to follow her throughout this book to see how she begins to develop. Socialization is a process, and it starts at a very early age. She's very impressionable. She's still at an age when she's very impressionable by things, by people, by life, by her peers, by entertainment, by the music that's coming out during that time. So we have to keep all of these things in mind. Let's move right along because it's a long chapter, but I really don't want to hold you too long. So let's talk about the 1950s, Wilmington, North Carolina. Assata states, in 1950, the year we moved to Wilmington, the South was completely segregated. Black people were forbidden to go to many places, and that included the beach. Sometimes they would travel all the way to South Carolina just to see the ocean. My grandparents decided to open a business on their land. It consisted of a restaurant, lockers where people could change their clothes, and an area for dancing and hanging out. So you can see that her grandparents are also entrepreneurs. They're into ownership. These are some financial principles that she's also gaining as a young child. So we're going to see how that plays out as well on Assata's views of economics, capitalism, socialism, communism, Marxism, the various isms and schisms. So she continues. She's now talking about her grandparents' business down in Wilmington, North Carolina. So check this out. Assata states, we were, however, visited by real, live ghosts. They were the phantoms of the parking lot. It seems that the white citizens of Wilmington and Carolina Beach were not at all happy that my grandparents had dared to build on the land and to start a colored business. We were too close for their comfort, so they would visit us from time to time to express their disapproval. Let's continue. The parking lot was made of dirt, and cars spinning around on it at breakneck speed would ruin it in no time. 2 or 3 of them would ride around the parking lot, spinning and skidding while they shouted curses and racist insults. One time, they fired guns in the air. So this can be considered a form of domestic terrorism. This is terrorism. So the Caucasian population around Wilmington and Carolina Beach were very upset and very outspoken about their discontent with Assata's grandparents opening a color business, meaning for coloreds only. All right, because this is 1950s. We're talking about Wilmington, North Carolina. Assata just explained that some black folks had to travel as far as South Carolina just to visit the ocean because even the beaches were segregated. Even the beaches were segregated. So these people took it upon themselves, right, in the spirit of self-determination to open their own business. We're going to open our own restaurant. We're going to have a place where people can change their clothes. And we're going to have a place where they can dance and party and have a good time. And it's for colors only. But the surrounding white population didn't approve of it. And they had to show their discontent. And this consisted of destroying some of their property and shooting firearms in the air. You know, let's move on because this is already, taking some time. Let's deal with Assata on being brainwashed. This is a concept that's going to reoccur throughout the text as well, brainwashing. Okay, so groupthink, things of that nature. So we're going to get right into it. We have been completely brainwashed and we didn't even know it. We accepted white value systems and white standards of beauty, and at times we accepted the white man's views of ourselves. We had never been exposed to any other point of view or any other standard of beauty. From when I was a tot, I can remember black people saying niggas ain't shit. You know how lazy niggas are. Give a nigga an inch and he'll take a mile. Everybody knew what niggas like to do after they eat. Sleep. Everybody knew that niggas couldn't be on time. That's why there was CPT, colored people's time. Niggas don't take care of nothing. And it continues. Niggas don't stick together. The list could go on and on. To varying degrees, we accepted these statements as true, and to varying degrees, we each made them true within ourselves because we believed them. So Assata is now alluding to people of African descent in North America, or so-called African Americans being brainwashed. Some of these terms that she mentioned in this book we still use today. This book was written in the 80s, to show you how much things stick with us. When people want to say, oh, that's the past, that's old, this is a new day. Well, we're still using some of the same terminology, and we're still using some of the same thinking, and we keep ending up at the same destination. And quite frankly, to some of us, at least, it's frustrating. It's aggravating. It's like being on a hamster's wheel. So I think Assata's comments on brainwashing was something worth sharing. So I'm going to move on because this is a long chapter. There's a lot in here. Hopefully, I'm encouraging you to read this book because I'm not giving you everything. I'm giving you snippets and pieces just to make you think, just to entice you to get this book, support this woman, learn about this woman, educate yourself, empower yourself, make moves. And we're going to continue. Assata wants to talk on Lincoln now in the Civil War. It goes to show you where her mind is, what type of thinker she is. I hope this is giving you some insight. Little did I know that Lincoln was an arch racist who had openly expressed his disdain for black people. He was of the opinion that black people should be forcibly deported to Africa or anywhere else. We had been taught that the Civil War was fought to free the slaves, and it was not until I was in college that I learned that the Civil War was fought for economic reasons. The fact that official slavery was abolished was only incidental. Northern industrialists were fighting to control the economy. Before the Civil War, the Northern industrial economy was largely dependent on Southern cotton. The slave economy of the South was a threat to Northern capitalism. What if the slaveholders of the South decided to set up factories and process the cotton themselves? Northern capitalists cannot possibly compete with slave labor, and their capitalist economy would be destroyed. To ensure that this didn't happen, the North went to war. I think that's self-explanatory. I'm not going to expound on that. Those were Assata's views on the Civil War, and one of the most infamous presidents, Mr. Abraham Lincoln. I want to talk about Assata and her auntie Evelyn, and the impact that Auntie Evelyn had on her life. Then we're going to pretty much wrap up the text. Evelyn, my aunt, was the heroine of my childhood. She was always taking me places and exposing me to things, as she called it. She took me to museums. I think we visited just about every museum in the city of New York. She turned me into a real art lover. Okay. Before I was 10, I could recognize a Van Gogh on sight. And I knew what Cubism, Surrealism, and abstract expressionism were at 10. Picasso, Gauguin, Van Gogh, and Modigliani. I'm not sure what that name is, but I will look it up for you guys. I apologize. And Modigliani, haven't heard of it, were my favorite artists. I didn't know the name of one black artist in those days. But you can see the importance of Auntie Evelyn, who ends up representing Assata as her lawyer. Later on in the book, Auntie Evelyn takes Assata around New York to museums and various historical sites so that she can be exposed and well cultured. We're going to wrap this up because we're getting close to 18 minutes. And I don't want to hold you too long. There's a poem at the end of chapter 2 called Cracker Jacks. I'm going to share that with you, and we're going to move on gracefully to chapter 3. I could have told you in the old days, in the park, or skating down some hill, what it was all about. I could have sat next to you on some stairway and gave you half my bubble gum. And in between the bubbles and the giggles, I could have told you. But we are grown up now, and it's all so complicated when you dig somebody. Now, when I open up my Cracker Jacks, I find no heart-shaped ring, only a puzzle that I didn't want to solve. Cracker Jacks by Assata Shakur. Again, this is Kimbe Reads. This installment is chapter 2 of Assata, an autobiography written by Assata Shakur herself, with the foreword from the revolutionary Angela Davis and the attorney Lennox S. Hines. Again, my purpose, my hope, what I'm thinking is that I can hopefully make you purchase this book and recognize the significance of this woman and her contribution to freedom struggles here in America, as well as the world over. Right? I'm not here to sway your opinion on what happened on May 2nd, 1973. I wasn't there. More than likely, you wasn't either. So we just taking different people's account of what occurred. I'm reading of the autobiography of Assata Shakur herself, in her own words, and they're eloquent, they're well written, they're thoughtful, they're mindful, they're provocative, they're informative, they're intelligent, they're controversial, right? Right, controversial, to say the least. But they're worth your time. And I know reading is hard in this day and time, so I'm dedicating my time to read with you as we digest this, as we go over the ingredients, and we break this down bit by bit so that we can build up our understanding and create a bond based off of intelligence, understanding, wisdom, right? Knowledge, information, and then let's make moves. Thank you for spending time with me. Again, this is Kimbe. I appreciate you. Stay tuned. There's more to come.